change. Whoop. See how it changed? That means video. All right.
Yeah,
Good morning.
in the chat message.
Staff meeting, Thursday, July 6th. I'm 64 years old. I'm an old fart now. I got one more year before I'm officially a senior citizen, and I can blame everything that I do wrong on age. I get to stop saying it's just my autism. And I say it's nice because I'm an old fart. But when it's your autism, you have to like still be responsible for what you say. But when you're an old fart, you can say stuff that's really offensive and say, well, I'm just old.
Do you have a lawn you can scare people off?
You have a what?
Do you have a lawn that you can scare people off?
No, I don't have a lawn.
Yeah, you need to get one.
I don't
so
have
you can
a
scare
lawn.
the kids.
He's like what's his name? The McCloskeys who had the AR out there on the lawn looking like a badass in his polo.
And if you have autism proper, you can apparently get a card that allows you to avoid some responsibilities.
Yes, there you go. All right. How did those how did they do? Did they do okay, the McCloskeys, or did they get really?
No, they're good. I saw him on Twitter. He I think for the 4th of July they hung a big American flag, and they were just like, thankful that this whole opportunity happened and whatnot. So they're doing good.
That's awesome.
From what I can tell.
More power to them. I'm trying to figure out, why is it okay to have hoodlums traveling through your neighborhood and not stand up? I mean, because like I'm old, so I remember the '60s. So I remember when the men in our town, Canandaigua, New York, in good old fairy tale Canandaigua, New York, land of Middletown, Main Street in America, been voted the something like the most quaint city left in America a few times anyway. It's the men, including my father, just stood on the street with shotguns in front of their businesses, and they took pictures of them and I put it in the paper. That was how we made sure that people understood you're not bringing that stuff here.
It's like Kyle Rittenhouse.
Did you see the picture of actually a video of some dude blocked off the street in Bellevue, of all places, right? The well-to-do neighborhoods, was an AR standing in front of it. Yes. So this is when the Bellevue Mall, Bellevue Square was being raided. And so, a few blocks over, you got the nice-to-do neighborhoods, all the triple $1 million homes around the waterfront and so on. So there's a video of some dude just parked his car in the middle of the street with an AR, right, preventing the mobs from going there. And I presumably there's a mobs who took the video and then later posted on Twitter or Facebook asking what kind of AK is that guy carrying. It's obviously AR-15.
That's just funny to happen in Bellevue. I mean, and Bellevue cops aren't known for being forgiving.
No, they
a $700 ticket for driving a Ferrari without a seatbelt. $700 ticket.
These days, though, apparently Medina gets a lot of break-ins because the criminals know that most of the rich to-do people aren't there in certain times of year, and Medina only has like 2 cops or something for being such a small city.
Well, it used to be Bellevue used to be the place where you didn't lock your doors.
Mm-hmm.
I loved living there. I lived right over the lake. Not the Sammamish, right? Sammamish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sammamish. Lived like overlooking the lake. Happy days, except when it rains 100 days in a year and your lawn is big. If you can't step on your lawn because you could sink down to your knee.
Oh, you have one of those.
The ground is liquefied.
Becomes a swamp.
All right, so we got to respect Rob's time. So let's go ahead with our session here. Francis, what do you got for us?
Yeah, can you give me share?
I don't like to share. If I find a girl, I want her all to myself. There you go.
I certainly wouldn't be interested after you'd been there.
Floppy seconds.
Rob, you keep using that sexy voice in this meeting. That's not fair.
I'd do it for you.
Gonna hypnotize us.
All right. So review action items from last meeting. The first one is on the progress of junior staff meeting for both Gabriel and Martin. So did we decide whether to have their own forum or bring them into this meeting? I mean, I think Martin, you added them into the NLI team channel.
Yeah, it's just 3 people, and one of them doesn't want to appear publicly involved. So I'm not sure starting another meeting as a point.
Can somebody repeat what Martin just said, because I couldn't hear it?
I'm not sure starting a new meeting as a point because it's just 3 people added, and at least one of them doesn't want to appear publicly.
Who's that? Dehan?
So I'm not saying his name.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
He doesn't want to be mentioned publicly. Who?
To be fair, he said appear,
That's true.
but Martin's got his back.
Okay, so shall we just consider this this item done?
Yep.
Well, we can figure out what to do with them.
I thought we said this was your job to figure it out.
Okay.
Gabriel, what do you think?
Well, I think we should give him some tasks whenever it comes to mind. No point in just trying to brainstorm something right now.
So does that, wait a minute. What I'm asking is it useful bringing those guys into the NLI discussion?
They will participate in the discussion.
Great.
That's done.
So basically, conclusion, just tap and participate
We
in
added them to the group.
Yeah.
Right, that's fine, that's fine.
to- All right, so next one, decide whether we'll do the online office hours with the NLI community, and then set a date and time for the first meeting so we can get it going. So I hope everyone read the proposal. I put together a template for this doc here, which is basically a document for community member to ask questions, put their questions on here ahead of time, and also give staff a chance to review these before we visit them in the office hour.
Office hours. Okay, so this is this. Could you just add parentheses? Ask us anything after this so that we can, because that's how we'll have to.
How about just call it NLI ask me anything?
Okay, I just like the office hours. I just like that a lot. No, I want to
Well,
keep the office.
what do you
hours.
want? Ask me anything or office hours?
Well, no, I would just say that that you can use a subtitle, right?
Oh, okay.
I could. You like give me this choice of it's one or the other. Not saying I'm a greedy fucker. I want both.
Is it ask me or ask us anything?
Ask us.
I was thinking that should be a staff in there.
A lot of people understand the AMA because of that's what they call it on Reddit. but
Yep.
it's technically us, so that's fine.
I listened to my dear friend. He's not really a dear friend. He's just someone I'm having a vague friend acquaintance with, which is Stephen. Guy wrote postmodernism.
Hicks.
Thank you. It's the whole decaf thing does not help get the words going in the morning. So I listened to him yesterday. It was funny. The quality of questions they were asking him and his grace in answering them is something to be admired. But the difference is that he doesn't get attacked, whereas I get attacked.
Yeah. Therefore, my idea, let's start with an NLI community first, and
Yes.
then have people drop their questions in there instead of it, so that we can prepare ahead of time rather
Yep.
than a just-in-time thing.
Right.
So if we all think this is good, then let's pick a date and time. And I think
Do they have to be? Do we have to schedule them? But do they have to be regular?
they don't have to be regular. I'm thinking we do this first one, see how it goes, and if the community's feedback is overwhelmingly positive, then we can make it a regular thing.
How much lead time do we got to give? A week, 2
I'd
weeks?
say at least a week. For the first one, probably 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So any ideas, timeframes, preferences?
You mean what date should we pick?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose time would be ideal so that Americans and Europeans can participate to Europe.
Well, everyone I see happens. It's very hard to deal with this issue. For Americans, it's got to be, after 7 p.m. or later. But that's too late for Europeans, so we might want to do one by time zone. Is that what we want to do? Not
We
time.
could try the weekend, right? Saturday or Sunday. Well,
Okay.
preferably Saturday because people go to church on Sundays. So at least everybody's off. And then I think this time in the morning, 7 a.m. Americans for once a while, 7 a.m. Pacific Coast, 10 a.m. for you, Curt. It's not too late for Europeans either. And then
Okay.
even for followers in the Middle East or, Australia kind of sucks. Sorry, Rob. It's still
Australia's awesome.
Late.
They're just in the wrong place on the planet.
They just lead
Guys
us
are just
by like
jealous that
16
we're
hours.
first. You're just jealous that we're first.
New
I always
Zealand's
make sure
first.
she comes first.
I could make a lot of money in stocks from here,
Trading the
being 12
institution
hours
zone.
ahead.
Okay, so let's make a decision. Saturday.
Yeah.
All right.
I can guarantee being available on the weekend every time.
Martin, if we give you a heads up notice, would you be able to become available?
Well, there's a higher chance, I suppose.
Just do it. We'll guilt him into it. We'll call his dad, harass his dad, tell him he has to take one for humanity.
Okay. How about the 29th?
Fine.
Saturday 29th works for everybody this time.
How many times agreements do you need? Nobody objected. I said, yes, go ahead.
Well,
I'm
okay.
giving you shit, just do it.
Starts feel like when I'm leading the open source meetings, like everybody just, it's just crickets. I don't know whether like people agree or not.
Because the people aren't willing to take responsibility for saying yes, but they don't, and they don't have any reason to object, so they're just living it to someone else. It's really obvious. So what you do in those cases, you say yes, and you wait for an objection.
Okay, so let's make that happen. Martin, I'll work with you to get the word out in the community, and then we'll go do it.
Okay.
So this will be both broadcasted over Zoom Live, as well as Curt, if you could record it so that we can put it in the put it up on the YouTube channel later. All right. So next item is about the fall roadshow. Well, one, I think we decided that we want to do it, so we just need a location, date, time, and then start building a work back schedule. And do we, so let's revisit, do we still want to do this in the fall?
I would really love to. October or November, I would really love to.
Yeah, while Noah's in town. All right, so then, so I know he's gonna be in the Pittsburgh area, but for that weekend, he is, I mean, for I think about a week or so, he's willing to travel. So where shall we do this? Last time we discussed a list of locations. Right here. And we said that the only one thing I remember for sure is we want to save the DC region for last. We didn't say which of these other regions we want to start out first.
Noah's position seems to favor the Northeast or the Midwest.
He said he's gonna be Philadelphia or Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, and he plans on coming back
Pittsburgh.
to me.
Well, see. Of the people that can come to it. Sort of favors the Northeast somewhat. Maybe New York, I don't know. I'd say that if we're gonna take advantage of Noah being here, we should probably pick the Northeast.
Mm-hmm. When you say New York, you mean the city or the state?
Well, I think it depends on the venue. Again, we've done this in New York and it's been successful. It's not that far from. It's everybody who wants to get there can get there.
Mhm.
Right, so, and of course, you're pulling from there's also a very large. There's a very large marketplace, in other words, population to draw from. I'd probably prefer to do Boston myself, but. Because it's just it's less of a pain getting in and out of Boston. But.
So this is New York City that we're talking about.
Yeah.
The trash heap over there anyway.
So, well,
I was just talking shit about New Yorkers.
I was trying to hear what you said, though. I'm gonna appreciate it.
Oh, that it's a trash heap over there.
Well, if we find out that it's not, we try to, because the hard part's getting a venue, so we'll try to find a venue. I searched for venues all over Seattle. That's the Seattle area. That's really easy.
Yeah, and also I have local connections that can get us venues.
Right. So I think
We shouldn't do it in any city that we would recommend walling off.
Well, would you consider the outskirts of the cities, like instead of New York, somewhere in New Jersey?
If we're saying those cities shouldn't be part of the general population, we shouldn't be supporting them.
Well, I don't. It's not like there aren't conservatives and libertarians in New York.
Oh, I get that.
It depends on the side of the world, the outskirts.
Well,
would be.
Luke, give me an alternative.
You said Boston. Boston's better than New York.
Not from what I heard.
I don't know if that's true at all. New Yorkers have New Yorkers have a thing for, yeah, well, everybody's got an opinion. Boston's the most arrogant fucking city in the country.
You're talking about the Northeast.
Well, it's the most arrogant part of the country.
Right.
Where the fuck do you think I get it from?
It suits our institution, the arrogance. So, frankly, I see
We're not arrogant. We're just right.
that's the way I look at it. I think that's how they see it too.
All right. Well, here's what my proposal is.
Well, what kind of event are we putting on? Because that would determine what kind of
We should
location
decide that.
we
Is it
have people to go after.
Look,
Is it a
we've
panel,
already-
a convention?
We've already done this. We've done two sides of this, right? We got Brandon. Let's look at the two sides we've done.
Mhm.
The one we did inside NYU, right? We absolutely packed it, right? There were people standing outside, right? Every seat was taken, right? That was great. The one we did in Richmond, we had fucking 300 and some odd people show up, and we basically took over a campground. We're like an occupying force, right? So we've done the two ends of the spectrum. We could probably draw people, depending on how we position it.
So both of those times, since I wasn't there, are they panels? Are they like some kind of lecture? It is more like a convention. You know the difference, right?
Well, we had
Convention, like
the one in
keynote.
New York. We brought me, Kevin, Roberto, and what's his name from Eastern Europe? The right-wing nationalist guy from Eastern Europe. Sunik, Tom. We brought Tom. So we had four of us on a panel, but that was great. But everything that was really memorable is we occupied a restaurant afterwards, and we all sat around talking and drinking and such. So it doesn't really matter what venue we have. What matters more is the after venue. Does that make sense? It's the socializing afterwards.
Do we have anyone on the ground in New York who can help coordinate this? I mean, I'd be more than willing to coordinate with them, but without actually someone on the ground, it's really hard to check out the venues and stuff.
I don't know if that's true. We never saw them in person anywhere else.
No, I mean the place itself, right?
Yeah, we
Like, how do you know
we never sought them out early
Okay.
before ourselves. So it really doesn't. It really doesn't really matter. The problem with NYU is, of course, is because it's an activist place, they sort of afterwards went after us a little bit. But it wasn't because of us, it's because Sunik's people went there and started handing out flyers. And I'm like, that wasn't us. I mean, you go chase them. And our venue's gonna be about, go ahead.
So speaking of which, I may be jumping ahead. So attendee this time, it'll just be NLI staff, or do we plan to invite other activists?
Can you say that again? I couldn't hear you.
So for the attendees this time, will it just be NLI staff, just us, or we'll add other people as well?
Oh, no, it's no point in doing it unless we're adding other people.
Okay.
If you want to have a get together, that's great, but that's
No, I'm sorry. I mean, in the panel, right? So we had in NYU, we had a panel, and that's you, Curt, plus several others. So this time, if we're gonna do the
I have
panel
two other
again, it's
people
the
I'd
same
like
format.
to invite.
Okay.
I've already approached them about it. I can see us having more, yes.
Excellent. What about the event in Richmond?
That was just us.
So the format should be, we decide the format is going to be similar to the one at NYU.
I suspect that we want to have, I think in terms of the successes I've seen and the model that works is the one that pretty much everyone uses. That's why it works. And the difference is between the model used by the Mises Institute. Let's take it up a scale. The Mises Institute has the forums, right? Has lots of speakers like a university or think tank, but it's too hard to form groups afterwards unless they pay for it. It's a problem with their venue. So that's one. If we go to Hop's thing, you have the speakers and the panels, but the actual work, everything, it's all an excuse to have dinner together and entertainment at night. Does that make sense? The venue is the draw, but the social building happens at the when we're socializing. And then if you look at the best organizations, they promote the social part and they give talks during it. So it depends on what the distribution is between the intent to give education and the intent to build socialization. And that interaction is what you the lever you sort of move. Our experience is really obvious that, and I was who was I explaining this to yesterday? The fundamental problem for people who don't understand something, but they recognize something as right, is developing a trust relationship so that they will load on the ideas long enough to understand them instead of continuously try to reject them. So what happens when you develop a trust relationship is that people will just like they'll work on the relationship, they will work on understanding the work or the concepts, the ideas. So the real goal during these things is the admixture between providing the information and providing the social environment, develop trust relationships, because trust relationships that people then will stick. They stick, and that's what we're looking for.
Gotcha. So really, when we look for venues, let's focus on the afterwards, right? The after.
That's more
the social
important than the yes. One of the best venues we had was in Bellevue. I did that for Mises. As we had it in Bellevue at what's that restaurant? Anyway, they have a huge it's Italian, and then they have these huge event rooms in the back. So we had standing room only there too. And so we all showed up, we had food and we had talking, you know, speakers. And we had a lot of socialization.
So some kind of event room in the restaurant, right?
That's usually best.
Right. Right. That gives me some idea of what to look for. And how many people do we think will invite to this?
I have no
In
idea.
the hundreds?
I have no idea until we start. And you have to charge, the reason one of the other reasons that you have it in a restaurant is you charge money for the food, and once people paid for it, they show.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be much money.
Curt, last time for the NYU event, did you have any, what kind of advertising do we do? It's just like directly inviting the attendees, or did you have some kind of flyer, some kind of docs?
We just talked about it, inviting people. It was kind of amazing.
Okay.
What they spent a lot of time on at Mises was developing their contact list. And of course, Hop's group is very selective. You have to be invited, basically. We might consider that. We might consider that more direct approach.
I'm a bit greedy when it comes to things, but well, we should throw an event that we invite people to, both the audience and the panel members, in person, and have dinner afterwards and stay a couple of days, like at a venue.
Mhm.
Why would we do less than that, given what we're bringing to the table?
Well, because it's hard to get.
You do panelists that buy in up front, so cover your costs, and you charge for tickets.
Right, but I'm hearing you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noah has a
No,
course.
well, the reason is that I'm balancing this is our first one like this, right? As a group. And I'm balancing that against going too far with it. So I thought our goal with the first one was to get good at it.
At what?
To make sure we can pull it off and do a good job while we're there. And
Hosting events is its own skill set.
right.
Is Rob coming?
I'd love to. I don't think so. But you say get good at what? Hosting events, making it interesting, make people stick around, make it all flow. It's a thing.
Well, we can still bring in people by remote, so it's not like that isn't being done every day everywhere.
If that's the case, I'll
So it's
show up.
not fair because Rob's cute and he gets to have a monitor with a big screen and the rest of us only get to be life size. Same could be for Martin. That's not fair. I don't, they get it's like you have the overlords behind you.
I will just hold up a phone and they can talk over the phone. They don't get the big screen.
I see.
You and I, Curt, need to be like that old movie. I think it's Sound of Music or something. No, different one, where the face is and the voice is coming from behind the curtain.
Oh, I see. I get it. I used to get enough shit for that. already. Pull the levers. What's that? What is he writing? So okay. I'm
It's like-
watching Francis type, and it's very distracting.
I think you should just
Taking
own
notes
it.
for myself.
Luke, are you coming?
When is the weekend we're looking at, or the time we're looking at?
October,
we should-
November.
Decide on that.
Because I think it's the second to last weekend in October. I'm already booked up. So what's that? The 19th, 20th in there somewhere.
Okay.
So if not, if it's then.
I want to say that it's November.
So as I recall correctly, it's October 30th to maybe November 6th.
That
That's
sounds
what
correct to me.
Noah said. Looking in here, see if I can find it. Oh, there you go. Right,
Look at the memory on it.
October 30th to November 6th.
Looks like I could get a reasonable plane ticket up there. $150 round trip.
So there's a weekend in there, and that's a Saturday the 4th and Sunday the 5th.
Not really giving ourselves enough time.
I'm sorry, Kurt.
Well, it takes a little more than 6 months to make this sort of stuff happen. How much time have we got?
Half that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to try to make it too.
Do we want to do it in the middle of winter somewhere?
We want to do another one in the middle of the winter somewhere where it's warmer.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And, you know, here in the Midwest, it'll be snowing by November. So
We should still have reasonable weather here in the Northeast. Winter is held off till February the last 6 years in a row.
I absolutely would love to do one in Florida, one in Texas, and there's no real winter in Seattle.
Just the
They think
gray.
so.
I much rather do it in Florida in the middle of winter.
That's close to me down here. There we go.
Florida in the middle of the winter also suits me.
Barn, do you have a passport? Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think we should make a call. So end of October from now, it's a little over 3 months, right? And that's why I intended.
Hard. Yeah, well. We can always shift it if it doesn't work, so, but I'd like to take advantage of. It's not the only reason, but it'd be nice to take advantage of Noah being here. So let's try it. Let's just not try to go overboard.
Do you
Okay, so
guys need any help with the sort of third-party suppliers that you need for events, AV teams, lighting, that sort of stuff?
Thank you.
Quite
Do you
possibly.
guys know about that stuff, or
Well, in the past, we've just had people in the business have shown up and done the work for free.
The Northeast, I can get audio and video, at least a couple of guys there, anywhere we go.
well, if you have to do it all from a dry hire venue, I can help out, letting you know what sort of stuff you'd need.
Thank you.
Is that from all the porn shoots you've done?
Are you asking Rob?
I just had to. I had to. I knew I'd get a
You think-
smile out of that one.
How do you think I made the money to do this?
I thought it was because you're a talented musician.
That's my facade. I mean, even if it comes down to you guys saying, we're going to have a panel of live speakers and I mean, I just don't know what you guys are across, but if you need help defining like technically what the requirements are, audio, visual wise, etc., you can always just ask me.
Awesome. I know I will, because I know nothing about those.
Yeah, I'm a massive audio geek. Like, that's my thing.
So I think so if you want to do this pull this off by the first weekend of November, which is actually 4 months from now, we need some kind of work back schedule and milestones. Also, at what point do we say, hey, if we slip this milestone, then we can't make it happen? So, Curt, in your experience, what sort of order do we go about this at? Like, do we figure out the venue first? Do we figure out the audience first?
I know a guy in Florida that owns a venue.
Ooh. I would say that I have to be, yeah. I'd say this, I'm still cautious enough about my health that I don't want to put myself under too much travel stress. End up getting there and be out of gas. So that's at the rate I'm improving. I think by the winter I should be myself by the spring. Anyway, not that that's a good thing, for Christ's sake. All right. All right, so to put this together, you basically
When we use the Noah to Luke to institute pipeline to put it together and just headline Noah and Luke, and then put a couple of social events around it.
I think that's part of it, but the framing, I want the framing to cover the spectrum.
Yes.
And that's why I specifically would like to bring some of the secessionists with us.
Okay.
And then in other words, I don't want to be, I'm trying to get there till we create a brand image that has our activist objective in mind.
Yes.
And we get there by collecting people who have domains. So obviously our people have domains, but so do other people have domains.
Yes.
You know. And I wouldn't invite adjutants like we did with Kevin and Tom and Roberto. I would invite activists.
Yeah.
And
Well, Sean McBrearty come to mind.
what's he do?
He's an activist against the hypersexualization of children in schools in Maine.
Mm-hmm.
Effective activist.
Brandon, how do you spell his last name?
Hold on, I'll tell you. By getting it in front of my face. McBrearty. McBrearty. Brearty. Yeah, that's right.
What we did last
Did
time
we-
is we made a poster for the event, And we used that poster to repeatedly promote it on the platforms. So you just make a headline poster. And the more people we invite, the more networks we tap into.
Can we, under attendees, can we make a distinction between presenters and audience? So that line's blurry here right now as we're talking about inviting.
We're looking for pedophiles and that kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
As long as it's the right kind of drag show.
Well, I think the answer is yes, right? To have distinction between presenters and attendees.
Luke, what are you thinking?
Well, no, we're just having a conversation about attendees and who we're inviting. And I'm not clear on whether we're inviting presenters or whether we're inviting audience. And that's what I'm asking when we're having that conversation. That line is not clear to me.
You invite, okay, you're looking for attendees, but you invite presenters.
Right.
Increase your number of attendees.
But we have them all listed under attendees.
Oh.
And I don't know if we're talking about the audience or the presenters.
Okay.
Like, you know, for the format here, are we talking about doing a single panel discussion, or are we talking about multiple speakers over the course of an entire day?
Multiple and both. The way you usually do it is you have individual speakers,
right?
Then a panel,
right? Yeah.
And some things are suitable for panels.
Because in addition to this being an opportunity to start building our skills and putting a event together, it's also an opportunity to get our guys more comfortable speaking in front of groups.
Yes. I know you have a problem with that, Luke. That's a challenge.
Yeah, it's terrible. Break out in hives.
Gabe, how are you in front of groups?
I'm not sure. I'm not really good at verbalizing my arguments. I have problems with context and remembering words, so I'm pretty sure not really good.
Well, you write hella good.
Yeah, well, that's easier.
Brandon has not only learned to speak in polysyllables, but actual sentences and even sets of sentences.
Just think what we can do for all of you.
I bet you though, that Gabriel, if you and Martin were having one conversations with people, it would be in the after party, so to speak.
Okay, so I think we fleshed out a lot of this other stuff, a lot of requirements down already. Question is milestones, since we only have about 4 months.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like to get this all started, we need a contact list of the presenters, since presenters will bring in attendees. So we should develop that first.
Yes.
Well, we need a pitch. We need a pitch. Write it down. We need a pitch. You gonna write it down, or you're gonna make me write it down?
I will write it down, or rather, I think the AI will write it down. I'll just put it under next steps.
Is there a supporters database?
Yes. Well, cleaning it is a nightmare, which I haven't done now in more than 6 months.
Because when I hosted events, the point was to hand out job descriptions and say to people, you know, I mean, this is not what you want, but yeah, capture them and keep them in the database and grow the actual support base.
This is
that
why
you
we
generate
need, this
from
is
the
why
events.
you want 6 months, is because people need to plan for the time, they need to make sure they're gonna have the money. And in most things, it takes 3 months to sell somebody on something. So I don't want to interfere with our process here, because by outlining the what we'd like to do, it's much easier to cut back to what we can do. But let's just keep going with what we're doing here, because I'm looking at this, I'm like, just no fucking way. And
Well, even if we come down to that conclusion, we paved the way for an actual event that's within the realistic.
exactly, that's what I'm saying, the same thing. It's like when I
Okay, so we need to
design a
develop a
software
pitch.
system, I figure out the longest way through it. I design the long way spike through it, and then I know that I could correctly understand the problem. So we need to develop a pitch. We need to select some candidate attendees, but not attendees, speakers, including ourselves. We have to take a look at what the distribution is. You have to run a query of your database to see who would be interested in it. Just get a test for it.
For the candidate speaker.
No, in other words, it's good to say something like, we're thinking of an event at this time that would look like this. This is with our own group.
Mm-hmm.
Would you show up for this? And you just get an idea for that. And then you run the pitch by the other speakers. Right. And you run the same thing by the other speakers for their audiences. And then you solidify the venue based on your prediction. You set up a website for registering for the event. You then send out the basic plan to everybody who's going to be there and help them organize. In other words, what are they going to present, and where are they going to stay, and that kind of crap.
Typically for the presenters, like do we book whether, and do we let them book whether they're gonna stay, or like do we book?
Usually the venue will request the range of rooms that you need. So you estimate the number of rooms they don't generally care. They just want to have a rough estimate.
Okay.
The cost of the venue determines a lot on who's going to come. One of the so, as in many things, our strategy here is to not only advertise for ourselves, be the organizer, but to advertise through the networks of other people that we invite. In other words, shared legitimacy. My opinion, most of the value, long-term value, comes from relationships formed and the video records of the presentations. So what we're doing here, we're outlining here, is the where's that part I just mentioned, that the long-term value?
Ah.
Because that's a goal.
That's the goal. Is that just cover under this top one?
No, just state it here. General, the long-term value is the relationships formed and the video content produced from videoing the presenters. And so this is legitimacy production. That's what you're trying to do, produce legitimacy.
Okay, so I suggest we do this as next step, right? This is in priority order. Let's develop a pitch first, and then select the candidate speakers and presenters. And by step number 3, we will know how realistic it is to pull it in October.
Correct.
Yeah, because once we put out the word and say, hey, we're thinking of holding this in October, how many
Put that as your next bullet.
Say again?
Then add that as your next bullet. Depend on my memory. So we have to start talking about the communities. Then the next step is let's talk about the communities. Because I want to start with loops and then work up.
Are you drinking Mountain Dew?
No, I'm drinking seltzer water. Is what
Okay,
I usually drink. This one just happens to have, I think, lemon flavor because they ran out of. I buy them like 10 bottles at a time. They ran out of plain. Mountain Dew, that's disgusting. I don't really understand the whole attraction to that stuff, but ugh. I guess you got to be a redneck, maybe, or a child. Maybe,
There's this thing called plain water.
Well, there is. I will, but if you have, I won't talk about this. I just prefer the taste of this, and there's a reason for it.
Okay. This is reaching out to Luke and Noah's audience.
Right. So let's talk about audiences, right? We can actually move this up a little bit to your other audiences section. So Luke, when I know you have a homeschooler community, and what other community?
Um,
In other words, if we're
For-
going to put something out, we want to be able to wrap a message in it, right? So we want to be able to say, we're going to actually talk to what you care about.
right. Yeah, so the big ones I'm tied into here, are the homeschool communities, the health freedom communities,
Homeschool,
And
health
then-
freedom,
and then the self-defense communities. So
self-defense. Right. Great. Okay. Now, we don't have, can you add a new line for Noah's?
Noah's? Yeah.
And so he's, what do you call this?
He has got that the I'm thinking manor bun. but
Manosphere.
That's not right. Manosphere, yes.
Yeah.
Like the Jack Donovan's.
Is that really who he pitches to? Yeah,
that?
probably is, isn't it?
Jack
Okay.
Donovan isn't he the guy that fell apart?
Jack Donovan?
No,
Mm-mm.
that's Murphy.
Oh, that's it. Sorry.
Who's
Jack
Murphy?
Donovan wrote the Way of Man.
I was thinking about Murphy.
Jack Donovan is gay, but I guess nobody cares about that.
What's the Murphy thing? Tell me about this, because I don't know anything about this.
it's irrelevant to this conversation.
That means you don't want to record it?
No, just truly, the guy's irrelevant to what we're trying to accomplish.
All right. I thought there was a good bit of entertainment there to be had. Some juicy gossip.
I mean,
He was acting like
I
some
could fill you in if you wanted.
He was a cuck at the same time publicly, so
I'll get one of you to inform me offline. All right.
So I think another part of Noah's network are the relationship coaches.
Yep.
Not sure what's the best way to put it.
Yep, that's good.
Traditional relationship development.
Yes, there we go.
Relationship development. Yeah. That's what I was looking for.
Especially men and women relationship.
Yeah.
He also has a network of, I think he called a high agency men or something. So younger men who's trying to develop their agency.
Self-improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
that's
what
true.
did he call it?
He's got a self-improvement. I'm not sure if that's not, it's really, and he's got a self-improvement aspect, right?
Let's call it self-mastery. Improvements too
Yes, yeah,
ambiguous.
that will lie into with yours.
well, at least in theory, that's what Manosphere should be about.
It should be, yes.
There's a big overlap.
Okay, I love that insight, the difference between self-mastery, which is responsibility, and self-help, which is I'm a victim. I love-
Yes.
Okay, what's the next step up here? I see an opportunity there. I don't know if I want to go for it. We need to work on the protection of the education, protection of children issue. So what do you call this? All right, so we need some, just make a sub bullet and put a couple of question marks there, because we have to find people to come talk about that. We should put that under,
Stewarding innocence.
ooh, I like that, stewarding
Yep.
innocence.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of Brandon's group and also the activists that you mentioned in Maine.
Yeah, this is up his alley.
Who's
I mean,
that?
they're the moms and the families. That's
Very good.
But that, Brandon, that's part of your network, right?
Oh yeah, I have plenty of people that I have people that have come here to speak on those things. All the indoctrination in the schools. That ties into homeschooling.
All
Hey,
right,
Luke, to jump back to your network in the self-defense community, would you say that overlaps with the 2A community?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some folks in that network as well. Brandon, do you have some other network that we can put on here?
I'd say that the networks we're talking about heavily overlap with the First Amendment freedom fighters.
I'd love to find somebody that can talk on lawfare. Get a lawyer involved that's talking about how to defend yourself across all of these domains.
I have a lawyer and a competent litigator in mind.
Good.
so we need to add that topic.
Sorry, I missed the last one.
Lawfare.
Because Luke was saying it across this group, right? So just make that note across, Francis, just write open parentheses across all.
Yeah, I think what you mean is these groups, they
No, I mean that
Venn diagram
lawfare,
wise the
I
overlap.
mean that lawfare is across all. Okay,
But across all what domains?
All the domains we're speaking on. Yeah, the lawfare is gonna at least touch on all of these. So
Yeah.
all right. Where is marriage and divorce and child support and that stuff?
See, Noah's traditional relationship development covers some of these.
I don't think, I think,
Divorce and child rearing, not so much.
I think we need to bring somebody, we need to bring that, that in.
the whole restoration of family thing.
Yeah, restoration of the family, let's call it that.
Do we have anyone in the network that specializes in fighting against DEI in the corporate world?
Interesting. No, but they exist.
Say that, ask the question again, Francis.
Do we have anyone in the network that fights against diversity, equity, inclusion that's encroaching into the corporate world.
I think that I do.
Noah does some of that too, but
So just make a
Yeah.
new topic, make a new bullet point.
Yeah.
With dot, with question mark, question mark, question mark. Anti-DEI, etc. in corporations.
That's something Noah and I are working on, but we're not out there yet with the anti-manipulation stuff.
I know this.
this might be a good way to field test some of those concepts in front of an
Yep.
audience. Can we do a separate bullet here, question mark bullet for financing? You know, are we gonna have anyone talking about decentralized? Are we gonna have anybody talking about
Oh yeah.
working within the current systems? Or Curt, do you want to do your money talk at this thing so you can just do it off the hook and not have to plan anything out? Or you know, there's stuff we could do in here too.
I think the better
But
answer.
we're just building a wish list right now, right? We're not deciding on topics, right?
Oh, this is a brilliant
top of funnel.
exercise. This is a brilliant
Top of
exercise.
funnel, just
Yeah.
go out there, brainstorm, and then we're going to distill it down to a set. Also depends on who we can actually bring in.
Under the family question marks, can we add family as political unit? And then in there we can also look at houses for unfamilied, things like that, right? It goes all play into the same topic.
What does that mean?
That's your thing, where the unmarried and the unattached or whatever, they have houses of representation
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
direct voting.
Out. Okay.
We don't have a pitch or a theme yet, so I'm just shotgunning.
No, I mean, we
ideas.
can arrange it. I'm trying to build up to that level by
Yeah.
going one layer at a time.
Yep.
So we got the corporation. Now we want to get the economy. Right, which is where we're down here.
Yep.
And then we want to get to law, obviously.
Yep.
So what I want to cover here is the scale of the crimes. No, above up the next one up. The scale of financial crimes. Then I want to talk about secessionist movements.
But that's not under economy.
No,
Would that be under law?
I'll be right there, right there.
Legal justification, maybe
What?
legitimacy or the legal justification secessionists of secession.
I think it's to cover ideas.
Can we call the category federation, and then in that category we talk about secession as a path to federation?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I like that.
Secessionist movements should be a survey.
Yeah.
So we can bring a lot of people in.
Because another one under there would be, devolution of federal powers, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be secession. You can
Mhm.
devolve the federal powers back to the states and stuff like that. There's a lot of paths you can take
Right.
through there.
federal powers overreach, that's a crime in a sense. Devolution and secession movements are all methods. And there's also, I think, in that using that framework, there's also the end goal. A federation, what does the ideal federation conforming to the natural law looks like?
1,000 nations.
Mhm.
So we've migrated a little bit from
No, no,
audience
We're not done yet.
to the list of basically topics.
So we
Well,
want,
these are all topics that the audience would be interested in, right? These are all draws for
Correct.
different audience categories. So
Yeah, good point.
so law should be, should be lawfare again. Lawfare.
Lawfare in the sense of telling, educating the audience how lawfare is being waged against them, or how to wage lawfare back.
How to wage lawfare, wage is, yeah, I would actually waging lawfare.
Okay.
some of it is, just we're gonna have to teach the audience the difference between rule of law versus rule by law.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Another topic in here would be construction of law.
Luke, do you mean the difference between common law versus continental law? How
I mean,
these laws
well,
came to be?
one of the solutions we offer is the construction of law in accordance with natural law, right? I mean, so we want to be able to present that because we're claiming it as a solution we offer. So
Mhm.
You know, the bullet, I mean, the rule is, yeah.
I mean, part of it's it relates to the activism stuff too. We can actually walk people through how to write legal proofs and stuff like that. Right. I mean,
Right.
we can demonstrate those actual activities. So
That could be its own workshop.
yeah, probably by the third, fourth, or fifth one of these, we'll have to be breaking out some workshops on how to do a lot of this stuff. At first, it's just going to be presenting it so people know what the heck it is. Then it's going to be building the teaching of how to do it.
It's starting to sound more and more like a build conference. You have your keynotes, you have your breakout presentations, and your code labs.
That's where this will get.
I was definitely thinking about a conference. I've gone to some tech conferences recently, which are really good, and this is taking that shape. Yeah.
Oh.
That'll come with practice.
I swear to God, I have this page open somewhere.
I mean, all of these things that we've listed so far have, in some shape or form, advocacy groups currently working on them, right? So they already have audiences we can tap into and offer solutions into, or at least attract the audiences with the idea of presenting solutions. So do we need to wrap up on this and move on to the conversation you wanted to have, Rob? You're muted.
You're
Can't
on
hear
mute.
you.
I don't want to ask for that, but it's getting late. And even if this wrapped up soon and we started that, I think it'd still take too long. It's
Okay.
1:30 in the morning for me. So
You're a hero, Rob.
let's just postpone what I wanted to talk about.
Hey, Rob, let's put you on the agenda for the next meeting so we don't forget.
Sounds
Could
great.
also split off just a chat with one or two of us or something like that, just to have a little podcast session as well. So
I'm keen to do that. Yeah, I'm pretty set
Rob,
up.
what's
for
the
podcast
topic?
now.
I'm sorry, I'm so wrapped up in what we're doing. I've forgotten. What's the
I
topic?
don't want to take you away from it. I'll just put it in the chat.
No, but just tell me what it is.
It was the scope of what's actually possible with what's reciprocally possible with the left at political scale.
Thank you.
It's obviously easy to have reciprocity with a woman, but the left at political scale, I'm not really seeing a lot of possibility there.
Right. So that's actually an interesting problem we should add to the list that we're working on.
Oh,
In other words,
Yeah. So if that's good, I'm going to get some sleep.
thank you, brother.
Love your work, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
see you, Rob.
We should always take care of his stuff first.
Yeah, he's just under a different time constraint than we are. So.
that correct? So politics, field of possibilities with the left.
Yeah, I think that should be earlier. It should be before Federation.
This is not exactly an ordered list, and we're just sorting things out there.
Scale of financial crimes. Let's just add under decentralized financing, proposed solutions. Right, because we've got an awful lot of these things done. Outdent that. Proposed solutions, outdent.
Oh, I see.
Right.
You could outdent scale of financial crimes and just call that whole section economy as well.
Yep, yep. Is there a place for internal conflict here? Yes, under
Internal
politics,
conflict.
under politics, the problems of internal conflict,
What do you mean by internal conflicts?
factions. Open parenthesis factions, right? Factions, great. Yes. Where do we put, is there any solution?
For the internal conflicts.
No, to our conflict, so we have external, the field of possibilities, so that's external conflict. And there's internal conflict, which is our factions, and then what to do about it. What are our choices?
Just make the next one just conflict resolution because it handles all of them.
Yeah. Open parentheses, what to do about it. Okay, great.
So factions, this is factions within the right.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on 2 hours.
Yeah, but that was hella good.
Is there any,
Hours.
agreed. Is there anything else we can add to the audience? Because I do want to confirm the next steps and putting this into action. It
Can I
sounds
just
like based on all these, yeah, go ahead.
Can you just add after federation? Can you add our constitution?
Yeah. Under here, we should probably explicitly identify the holes of the existing constitution.
Sure.
Highlight key differences in the NLI constitution.
I would just say what what it consists of. We don't want to, I mean, it's too much work to take everybody through everything. So let's just say overview, just an overview of the Constitution. Right. Okay, so now we'll go back to whatever you were going to ask.
I was going to say, so is there anything else we need to add to this audience / topics list?
Well, I tried to cover the spectrum, right? So you have the self, you have the family, you have the business, you have economy, you have law, politics, and macro politics. So I think the only thing I was trying to figure out what are we missing here, and it's just religion. I'm not sure I want to go there.
So is this purely focused within the United States, or should there be international focus here as well? So there's some focus on international aspect because the United States does not exist in a vacuum.
Yes, that would be in it would be after politics and before federation. It would be
I was
international.
thinking between federation and NLI constitution, because the international aspect is
'cause
greater
you're
than.
Gonna create. Oh, I see. Because you want to talk about this. Yeah. Okay. Do that.
to call it international relationships.
Yeah.
Like this, international relationship. Or actually, here,
See,
rather
there-
than call it
basically,
international,
what's the world we want a position.
Right.
What's the world problem right now? What are you doing? No, international was great. Okay. What's the world problem? The world's problems right now. Right. And I'm trying to exit this discussion. So I don't know if I want to spend more time on this, but basically want to describe what the problems of the world today and the how we got here. Conflict of civilizations and how we got here.
how we got there, that's under problems. Some
All
kind
right.
of solution.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, that's a survey of topics. The other thing we're missing is really religion. We could add under family. We could to state that society is family, and that would probably be. No, not as family, but society consists of families. Well, society means families.
I didn't catch that.
Society means families. In other words, we're trying to. The purpose of society is the production of the intergenerational family, not the production of individual consumption.
Right. And then religion is just under here.
Well, guys, we want to even touch that subject.
Okay.
I mean, I can easily.
I think we have, like you said, we have a pretty exhaustive list for survey. And that answers my next questions, which is the next steps. It's really getting a survey together and test for the participation.
I think we're gonna have to wait till next meeting.
I'll work on the survey based on this list before our next meeting, and then we can review that in our next meeting. Okay. All right. You want to move on to fun topics?
We've tired everybody out.
I'm sorry, everybody.
All right, so can we shut this down and see what other topics we have for today? Because I'm pretty tired. I'm wiped out from this. I'm sure more people are.
I'm not sure we have any other topics. Oh, well, Noah's not here. So in the action items, we did say we want to continue the social organization, the manor bond discussion.
Yeah, the one from last week wasn't uploaded yet.
Did anyone understand what Martin said?
It wasn't uploaded yet, the one from last week.
What wasn't the talk?
Yep.
Hold on. NLI staff meeting 6:29. You're right. I'll be damned. All right, can I unshare the screen now
Oh, yeah.
while you work?
I'll just stop.
Okay, did we tire everybody out?
Yep.
Yes. All right. We didn't say, well, Brandon didn't say anything.
I'm not tired. I have work to do.
All right, so that was a really good meeting. Although I need more coffee now. So we'll pick this up, discussion up next week. Is there anything somebody wants to talk about today? If you have any energy left or anything curious, any current events, anything that's going on that's been interesting, other than the continued self-destruction of our news media, which is frankly pretty entertaining. The difficulty Europe is going through because it's created even a worse bureaucracy than America, and can't really adapt to or organize anything with efficiency, and the rise of secessionist movements in Europe and how they have actually some chance. The thing that's been interesting to me is that, I always thought we would have to save Europe, but at the rate Europe is declining, specifically because it consists of smaller states. I love what's happening to France right now. Might actually reverse the trend. That was kind of hoping to touch that one today. So, but I think I'm watching Luke's face here, and I'm thinking, what are you thinking, Luke? What do you think when I'm saying that? No,
Oh, I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Watching France right now is it's interesting.
yeah, well,
They still rule over there from up high, so they can just say, let's throw the bums out still.
so
Well, I'm
Over here, all
wondering
our
is
people
what-
got guns.
Yeah, what I'm wondering is when is the actual French gonna fight back? When the police and military officers gonna stand up? Didn't the French military already warn that this is gonna happen a few years ago?
and the police came out with a statement yesterday. Before they said this is
What did the police say?
we're about done with this. This isn't right. This needs to stop.
They said
Okay.
it's gonna lead to civil war.
What?
They said it's gonna lead to civil war.
Yes, it's going to lead to civil war. Yeah.
And then Macron said it's because of video games.
He didn't really say that.
Because of video games.
He didn't really say that. Did you just make that up for the humor, or did you? Or
Video games and bad parenting.
Yeah, he's been scapegoating all kinds of ridiculous stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Well, let's hope Le Pen gets in. Anyway, oh God, the video, and he's saying that when he doesn't have any effing kids and he married his mom.
I was gonna
mommy's
say,
boy.
like, he's probably talking about himself.
All right. So those things are going on. They look like they're going to get somewhere with Trump. Trump is just sending out subtle messages in coded form, so to speak, that we may need to have a revolution. So I think there's an interest. That's interesting. So I don't know. I mean, the world's the event we've been waiting for is slowly approaching. The economy looks better than I'd expected. Well, I can't really understand why people have an optimistic outlook. It's beyond me.
Usually let me put it this way. So the Fed has stopped raising rates. So they kind of paused.
Yep.
So the market is rebounding.
Mhm.
But if you look at it from a technical analysis perspective, it may just rebound to the 38.2 retracement before it takes another dip.
That's
And
right.
that dip could be on the cue of the Fed. The Fed is not done raising rates, and they're going to keep on raising rates until something breaks.
Yes.
And what it hits bottom, or what the market will crash actually when they stop raising rates and start lowering it.
Yes. Thank you
That
for
may give us
the
another-
actual correct answer. But what I guess I'm trying to ask is why I don't see the degree of stress in the population that I would expect to see. And I'm wondering if the stress created by COVID dampened the stress of the present. You know what I mean? So,
That and the drugs keep getting better.
oh God, you're so bad. You're so bad.
Video games keeps on getting better. Actually, it's not just the video games, because for the chads, it's like the field of opportunities keeps on getting better.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just another form of sedation.
So Gabe, I can't remember what your relationship status is.
I'm single.
Polyamorous.
No way.
I was saying,
Pronouns.
you know, I just baited that. I was hoping that he'd say this so that I could run with it. But then he took it off the table before I could act. I would not want to be out there in the dating pool today if you're not quite a bit above average. It is not going to be fun. And I can't understand why these women who are 4s and 5s think they're 8s, 9s, and 10s. Like, I'm just thinking, if you're even vaguely able to play that field, it's just like they're like Pringles, right? It's just open the can.
Well,
I don't wanna make
they are competing against men dressed up like women now, so they have that.
I kind of want to make a Twitter bot that just literally finds accounts where they're being conceited and narcissistic, and it just says you're a 4. That's all.
That
it does.
is true. The females did just usher in an uglier lower class for a while.
Wow, that was brutal, man. I didn't see that one coming. So repeat that again.
Well, they've ushered in an uglier lower class. There are men that are trying to be women, right? Playing in the same field with the
It
same
raises their
opportunities.
value. Yeah.
Maybe that's where your 4s and 5s are getting all their confidence.
What do you think about the Chinese state's prohibition on that or metrosexual urban male effeminacy? What do you think about that?
Them boys.
Right,
That's been going
they
on for a
prohibited
while,
all
right?
that stuff.
China's social
I-
policies in general are preferable over what we have.
I didn't want to say that.
I did.
But if you take away the parenting from the male limits, then you give it to the state, then the state has to play those limits, right? Marrying the state is an interesting problem. All right.
If the state is whatsoever interested in the success of the population, and in China it is.
Yep.
Not here.
Well, so Curt, if you're a betting man, which state would you bet will have a revolution first between China, France, and United States?
I would say China, but they're going to do it here.
That was funny.
I don't know about doing it here. I think China has enough internal
I was trying to
conflicts.
figure out if there was something sarcastic I could say, and then Luke beat me to it. The advantage is to size. In other words, smaller is better in some things. I'm not saying that it applies in all circumstances. I'm short and I'm better, right? So that's better. It's easier to bring about a revolution in a place like France. And the democratic capacity of France, which is legitimate, they actually have democratic legitimacy. And the difficulty the French have with lying to the public is the public in France is politically educated. I would say that the rate at the pressure is growing. The normal sequence would be France, America, China. On the other hand, China's very difficult to compare to Western countries because it doesn't have the means of democratic exit. In other words, there's no way to. The corruption we have to fix in America, or at least in the Anglosphere, is to gut the financial sector, which nobody loves anyway. While the problem in China is gutting the political sector,
the state
corruption.
Yeah.
And so the problem they have, there's a higher barrier to resistance by the state for its own survival. Whereas here, the state can claim it's going to be survival by ending financial predation. So if I look at this,
if
I look at it, hard to, you can tell, like I say, you can always predict outcomes. You can't predict timing, because right. And so it's like, so you're asking an interesting question. I would say, well, all other things considered, I would generally say it's scale, and that would mean China, America. It's going to be France, China, France, America, China. Why do I keep getting it wrong? And given the Chinese people are Asiatic and more tolerant of this kind of state behavior, it's hard to know if they would come earlier or faster. I mean, we sort of had our opportunity 10 years ago, and a little more. No, when it's more than that. Was it 20 years ago? When did that happen? The uprising in China? The
Tiananmen Square?
Yeah, when was that?
Oh, that's 34 years ago now.
Right,
that's in 1989.
Right. So that was when we had the opportunity, right? And that didn't work. So now it's the state is happy to lock people in and weld them into their apartments and stuff. So it's hard to see how that's gonna function. Who did we just lose?
Some Tyler just dropped.
So, and then if we flip it around and say, it's pretty hard to pull this off in America simply because the size of the government and the degree of ideological opposition. Whereas in France, I'm not sure it's the same ideological opposition so much as that the thing they're rebelling against is more tangible and practical rather than cultural. I mean, I remember going through this in the 60s, and it was not good. I mean, people don't remember we had bombings every week. It was the people don't remember the bank robberies, the Marxist bullshit going on. All people don't remember any of that stuff, and they don't talk about it on purpose. So, but that whole period from the mid 60s to the mid 70s, that was pretty awful. Here in the States.
So I have a question. You mentioned that here in the States, the government, the state can actually sacrifice the financial sector in order to keep itself alive. In my circle, in the technical analysis and trader circle, when we look at just how powerful the banking sector is, all the financial class, is it possible it's actually the other way around, that the state is actually controlled by the financiers?
No, I'm saying that. I'm saying that's the case. The
But
state is
then
controlled by
how
the
can the state then over sacrifice that sector if they're under their control?
because they can take over the financial sector. I mean, I've written how to do it. I mean, it's not even complicated. The France did it in the past, so you could certainly do it here. And so really what you do is you take all the debt instruments and you bring them into the state, right? And then you change the administration. You don't change the administration of it, but you change the decision making on the investment of it. You basically destroyed the financial sector. It's not even hard to do. Matter of fact, if you look at where the money comes from, it's all these institutions that accumulate pensions and mortgages and things like that, but they're just proxying for the treasury because that's who is insuring it all. The state could bring that in. The state could even take over the Visa MasterCard network, nationalize it, and then subsidize it so that there's no, because that's the real failure of the banking failure, right? It's that people get cut off from their cash, right? So that's why this consolidation keeps happening. So is that the government's afraid for people to not have access to the cash. They're not afraid of harm to the financial sector. It doesn't bother them at all, other than whether it shows up in consumer behavior and there's consumption or frustration because of interest rates. So it's very easy to take over the financial sector, and it's been done repeatedly in the past. In fact, if you look through history, it was done regularly, and it was a known policy of how to do it regularly. So that in history, what you generally did is the financial sector got out of hand. You gave everybody debt forgiveness, and you fucked over all the investors. And that's one way of doing it, but it just perpetuates the cycle. The second attitude is you say, well, that was when it was real money, so at least you could forgive the behavior of the financial class because it actually was money they made. The problem with today is with fiat money, it's not clear it's money that they made. It's money basically extracted. So if you just move the asset, the returns on debt back into the treasury, all those, I don't know, it's like 4 or 5 trillion. I don't know what it is. It's an extraordinary stream of money. Becomes an asset investable by the government and as returns. And so at some degree, you would be able to pay off citizens and commons instead of an elite sector in private consumption. And I expect, I can't believe it's gone on this long myself, right? The way I look at it is this is pretty obvious what's going on. So how did it go on? And we sort of understood this. I think the real issue is that the libertarians understood it, but they saw the state as so great a threat that they didn't popularize it. Whereas now what we've found is that the state and the financial sector together are a bigger threat than either the financial sector or the state on their own. So we have to figure out how to get control of the issue. Because what you really want to do is what the financial sector does, it wants security. So it goes to things that are regular, like credit cards and mortgages and pensions and these things like that, because they want stability. What that does is that moves their investment in their capital into consumption instead of capital into innovation. So what we want to do is have the state take over consumer lending, essentially anything, pensions and insurance and credit cards and all of that. We don't want the state to take it over. Excuse me. We want the treasury to be the primary bank for it, that's securing it, and therefore to obtain the returns on it. And then you want to force the financial sector to extend its time preference. Right. So there's time. So they're continuously, the financial sector, in order to obtain returns, has to be able to produce returns for the population and the government. instead of extractions from the
Except
extraction.
for themselves. I hear all you said. I'm just not sure if the state actually possess enough power, because the central bank has become so powerful. These the
Central
Federal
bank is
Reserve, they're
powerful.
independent.
The central bank is only powerful because no one has a gun at their heads. Now, again, France has done this. I mean, France did it with the Templars, right? France did it with the Rothschilds. Right, so we know it can be done in a modern state, and it's not even causes a blip. Matter of fact, I would say the primary error in economic history for the Western civilization is the failure of the English, the Bank of England, to imitate the Bank of France. Right, and so if we do the same thing here, it's just a normal progression. Right, and I'm not in favor of stealing people's stuff, even from the wealthy. But on the other hand, and I'm not that my opinion matters, but I look at it, I'm like, well, I don't really see it as a moral objection when you're just saying this is all extractive, and you can keep your commissions on it, right? In other words, if you're the insurance company and you're making money on that, great. But if we're going to hold the asset and the returns on the asset, and add that in because that's the optimum. That's the optimum. In other words, return on investment is the optimum taxation. Does that make sense? In fact, what you'd want is a government that made all its money.
You want to keep on growing the pie.
Huh?
You want to keep on growing the pie rather than extracting from the pie.
So in an ideal world, the way you get out of taxes is the taxes that progressive taxes, though we hate them, it's actually pretty reasonable. It's the best tax we know of, where VAT is the worst tax we know of. So
why is that? I thought VAT is actually, if you tax on consumption, that's what VAT does.
Right, but
it
creates friction at every single step. What you want to do is you want to have the least cost per transaction and the most abstract returns. Does that make sense? You want to have your returns be as indirect as possible. So it's the same thing with labor arbitrage, right? One of the reasons the United States is expensive and we have high incomes is because can I go down this route here without creating another? No. All right. So let's just the idea here is that if you have taxes, a tax on sales interferes with the consumer decision.
Right.
Right. A tax on businesses interferes with a business decision.
Mm-hmm.
A return on investment doesn't interfere. It assists in consumer and business and financial sector investments. So we have taxes because we have insufficiently converted to investments. That makes sense. And the typical economists would say, well, the state's investing in making your neighborhood, etc., so that your housing value is like, well, is the state investing in it, or is the people fucking investing? The people are fucking invested in it. And then what's happening in the meantime is you have a middleman called the state that's extracting for personal gain. So why did the WHO and my favorite one, so the WHO and the CDC fail? Because they weren't subject to crisis or war games, so that they had maximized the personal extraction of all the revenue. So what they hadn't done is produce insurance that they could actually, from that revenue that they were receiving. And
they weren't really doing their jobs.
Yeah, well, exactly. In economic terms, that means they're not doing their jobs, right? They were extracting rather than converting value. So, how have I gone too far sideways here? My point is that you're right that the financial sector is powerful, but it's only powerful because we let them. I mean, what would you take to go seize all the assets of BlackRock tomorrow?
Well, I mean,
a handful of
you
guys.
send the Fed after them, and
Exactly, it's happened overnight, right? Right. So what would happen to seize the Fed tomorrow? It would happen overnight, right? And there's a lot of effing money there, and it's the most non-transparent part of the government.
they're not part of the government; they're a private bank.
Well, I know that. That's what I mean is well, I mean, they are a private bank that prefers a political
Right.
objective. So it'd be one thing if you said they were independent, right? Which like the court is independent, but they're not just independent, they're private. So it's basically an extractive process. Now that was rational back before fiat money. And that's where this stuff came from, right? That's why the Bank of England and etc. and the Fed, that's why they were private, is because it was actually real money that people made. But now once we should have fiat money, it's all borrowed from it's all intertemporal loaning, right? It's borrowed from us in the future. So why are we borrowing from ourselves and paying ourselves, right? There's no
We're paying somebody else the privilege to borrow from ourselves.
It's fucking insane. So you could do this now. The problem is that you have the state having all this windfall and abusing it. So that's why it has to be independent. It has to be like the courts. It has to be independent with a rules-based order like the courts are. So this government can't actually appropriate it. But if you actually said your job, I'm going to hire the same kind of people that work, say, for BlackRock, and say you're going to get all your same commissions, except the returns go to the Treasury instead of to whoever your investors are. That would work fine. And what would happen, of course, is the investors would be out there searching for new means of capital construction. If you look around the world, where can you put your money right now?
United States.
Yes,
it's the best. It's got the best property protection laws.
Right. So
that's why
that's where they would do that, is they would throw their money into less certain revenue streams that produced higher returns, the returns of which would be productive rather than extractive. So I mean, it's not. I always, it's like there's a problem in economics like mathematics. Am I going to be too nerdy? I can be a little nerdy. So in mathematics, there's a tendency to practice the mathematical. I wish we had Michael here. Practice mathematics in traditional terms. So when you do that, you make assumptions. The fun one Michael and I have is the conflation of dimensions of counting, order, and direction, which is where the conflation of those three properties is why mathematics is goofy, right? It doesn't need to be goofy. It's much more sensible if you don't conflate those three properties. So, so the same thing happens in the banking, the financial industry, and the economics industry. Is this a very long tradition? Because it isn't quite yet a science. Right, because until the mathematics you need and the information you need to supply the mathematics to do any good economics is higher than our present ability to collect and make use of the information. Brandon's thumbing. You're liking what I'm saying, right? So, so the problem that we have with this issue is that economists are not. They're looking at the world through their historical lens, rather than looking at the world through the operational lens. Because what does mathematics do? All mathematics is statistical. This really frustrates mathematicians when I say this, but all of mathematics is statistical, meaning that it is dependent upon distributions of states. Whereas when you get into the economy, I'm going to be too nerdy again. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Anyway, all mathematics is statistical, all economics is statistical, right? And so what you need the mathematics to be able to handle things that are operational rather than statistical. In order to do that, you need to have more detailed information, a higher resolution than we have. So economists, they look at the world through this mathematical lens, which is actually archaic. And so when we take it away from the archaic view and you bring it to the computational view, you think about it more as game theory right? And when you understand that, what that means is that computation simulation have are able to produce computational reducibility better than mathematics. So we get into this problem of economists and not do be trying to I'm trying to end my little arc here and not be too nerdy. But the problem with economists, they're looking through this thing as a traditional lens instead of saying, well, all this happening is this this time cycle, right? What's happening is time, and how is time being used? And then let's just move time over here and produce returns on times this way. And so they tend to get boxed into this. Well, because when you study economics, what you really end up understanding is the monetary systems of the world. And that's not economics. That's the study of the monetary systems of the world, right? That's a branch of economics, but economics is what's the study of human cooperation, which is reducible to the study of time, the use of time.
Well, I would say that the problem economists have, and we're at the cusp of solving that problem, is the precision of their measuring instruments.
That's what
right? Even when you look at the stats coming out of Bureau of Statistics or whatever, even the M2 measure, it's imprecise measure, and that's why the Fed has to basically the Fed always over tightens basically because
it has to work with data that lags.
Right. Whereas in let's bring, say, crypto DeFi in here, right? In a system where the Treasury directly issues credit to the citizen and everything is tracked algorithmically and settled within seconds, you can get, there's none of this, hey, let's dial up the interest rate by 25 basis points and see what happens 6 months down the road.
That's why I've said forever.
You can actually, right, you can actually dial the money supply algorithmically based on the number of transactions and everything.
Correct. So again, that's right. That's why I've said you're going to end up with FedCoin, and I believe that the Fed will outlaw all alternatives because it wants to have it, and this is going to be the world. And I said, so I've been saying since 2013 or 14, maybe 12, what's going to happen is that's we're doing R&D for the state.
Yeah, the crypto kids are doing R&D for the states.
So,
but it's also a recipe for a dystopian nightmare, right? Basically, all your monies are controlled by central government.
The issue. Where are you going to put your trust, right? It looks like there's nowhere to put it, right? So the way you get away from having nowhere to put a trust is you put it in a machine, and technically speaking, that's what we want. We want a rules-based treasury and central bank that operates basically as close to algorithmically as possible.
Does it have to be central though, or the government just provides an infrastructure?
Oh,
centralization means
right. It doesn't. When you say the government provides the government needs to provide the infrastructure, I don't think it has to be centrally controlled. No, I'm not.
Right. It can't be a server or a cluster somewhere in the middle. Everybody can reconcile their ledger to that server. It has to be like the government. Here's what could happen, right? Treasury is now responsible for issuing these digital wallets,
right?
And for one for every citizen or something, and then they put the algorithm out there open source, and they pay for that infrastructure. But the actual reconciling of the ledger happens between node and node, with nobody actually controlling
it. I do not believe that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure what we'll see is the equivalent of regional banks. Well, not regional banks. The Fed offices, right?
The regional governors of the Feds.
Right. I suspect we'll have a distributed network, and everybody clear it there, because we can audit it between the central and the distributed. In other words, there will end up being a one of those things as the treasury, one of those nodes as the treasury itself. And I think that will probably happen. The reason is that I don't believe the current. I don't believe you can ever produce crypto that will be transactionally. I mean, the transaction processing capability of the current system I don't believe is fixable. So you're going to have clearance, and that appears to be
I see.
fairly easily.
You mean peer-to-peer, purely decentralized clearance? We have technology bottlenecks
Right.
that we cannot exceed based on current computational
Right.
infrastructure.
And
there's some kind of regionalized central clearinghouse is still possible.
Well, you want regionalized central clearinghouses simply for satisfy the reality of distributing the load and providing redundancy, right? So it's not like, the risk is that, what's that building in New York that's got, that would blow up that one tower in New York and half of AT&T goes away? I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. I can't remember the name of the building right now or the address of it, but I can see the picture in my head. Basically, this huge concrete structure. It's got the CIA in there and everybody, and the NSA in there and AT&T in there. But I mean, if anything happens to that building, it's like, okay, well, now what do we do? Well, you don't want that, right? You want to make sure that we have redundant nodes. So
Martin's like, better just blow up that building.
Oh, it's not like, I mean, the reason I'm talking about it is because I've read the papers that talk about the risk, the risk to assault on our system, right? I mean, so it's not like this isn't known. I mean, I don't know if the public knows it, but it's not like anybody who's responsible for national defense doesn't know it. Right? So it was the same thing to do with it's getting better now, but the point at which a trunk goes into the sea, right? They hide those cables pretty well, right? But I mean, it's like it's fucking that and a chainsaw, right? And it's not exactly rocket science to do the equivalent of cutting off the oil pipeline and the gas pipeline in the North Sea and cutting off our undersea cables. It's the same. It's the same problem.
That's only because a global network of satellites or wireless communication is still fairly limited. I mean, you could imagine a mesh network of satellites right up there.
You could.
Just very expensive to build.
Yeah. So anyway, how do we get on this? So my point was that your objection was, are they too powerful? No, they're not too powerful. If you're in the government and your existence is threatened, and you have someone to externalize the blame to, and still exist, you have a pretty clear incentive to take care of it, especially when it means the windfall pockets you're going to achieve from it are there. Now, I'm part of the generation that was politically active at the time. We absolutely positively tried to take the financial sector and make it an opponent to the state, which was in the 70s, right? That's when this happened, 70s and 80s. It was like, okay, the state is too corrupt. We need to move this into the financial sector. Then this financial sector bought the state. And it's just like, okay, we're back here again. So what's the only the problem is the financial sector needs to be infrastructure, right? Without the ability to buy anyone. All right, we've gone 2 hours and 27 minutes, so 2.5 hours. A long meeting today.
We got a lot done.
We did. And Gabriel needs to clean his lens on his laptop.
It's also dark in my room now, so.
Is that what it is? All right, Luke, anything? You seem to be enjoying yourself in this conversation. We've got a lot of smiles out of you.
Well, we're talking about revolution. It's good stuff.
Brandon, anything? No, was that good? Gabriel? Yep. He's like, I don't want to tease him. Martin, what about you? You have your serious face on. Okay, guys. Thanks for a great meeting. We'll meet next week and see what we get done there. Bye-bye.
Take care.